Hello, and thank you for joining us today for Let's Talk Couples and Money. My name is Tara Alderete. I'm with Money Management International, and I'm looking forward to sharing some great information, especially in this month of love. So let's get started. Before we begin, I'd like to tell you a little bit about our organization. Money Management International is a national nonprofit financial education and counseling organization. We provide education adhering to the belief that consumer credit education is the answer to many of the financial problems that consumers face today. Our mission is we improve lives through financial education. We also provide credit counseling. And during a counseling session, a counselor will help you assess the financial situation that you're in, develop a spending plan, set financial goals, and create an action plan to achieve them. Our counselors are available for in-person sessions by appointment in our offices, and they're also available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week via phone and online. So if you're interested in a session or learning more about the services that we offer through our credit counseling session, please visit us at moneymanagement.org. And then finally, when it's appropriate, MMI can assist clients through a debt management plan. And the goal of this is really to get clients completely out of debt as quickly as possible. So again, I want to thank you for attending and encourage you to ask questions and participate as much as possible through the chat window and also through the opportunity to raise your hand as I ask different questions as we move through this webinar. I do have all listeners on mute at this time, just so that we eliminate any background noise, but I do encourage you to participate as much as possible. So let's get started. When it comes to passion, no two subjects spark more heat than love and money. Good money management skills are very attractive. Couples who know how to build up anticipation in their savings accounts and in their love lives balance their wants and needs, and they communicate their desires and look forward to a relationship wrapped in financial security. But yet, financial problems have extinguished many flames, causing the words cold and hard to describe not only cash, but relationships gone wrong. So today we'll talk about the importance of communication and listening skills, assessing your combined finances, setting priorities and goals, establishing your new budget together, and really making the commitment. These are concepts that apply no matter how long you've been together. Some couples never get around to having the talk, so we're going to tackle it today. So I've got a question, and you can answer this question by raising your hand for true, pressing the little hand raise icon, or if the answer is false, then don't press anything. But consider this, true or false? Couples have more difficulty talking about money than any other subject. Right. So I see some raised hands in there, and that is true. Most experts agree that couples have an easier time talking about just about any other subject besides money. And why is this? Well, couples don't know how to start the communication, or oftentimes they're reluctant to do so. So let's take a look at some strategies for starting that money conversation. We know this can be difficult. So before talking about money, prepare a setting for the conversation. Pick a time when things are quiet, remove distractions, and ease into some general topics like how your partner feels about money. And also choose your timing. A financial discussion when you or your partner are angry about something that happened, a financial transgression, or something that might have happened to spark you to have this conversation, but you're angry, this can cause unnecessary confrontation. So once you become a better money communicator, set a regular time to talk about your bills, talk about your budget, and also talk about your goals as a couple. And make regular discussions about money part of your routine. That way, you'll talk about the positive things too. So for example, how you were under budget on groceries for the month and were able to save extra money towards your vacation. Or don't make the money conversation wait until there's only negative or urgent things to talk about. So let me ask you, and instead of by a show of hands, if you want to type some comments into the chat box, this would be great. How do you think you could set up a financial discussion with your partner? Set the stage for a positive discussion about money. I'm seeing some good responses come in. So there's a couple different things we could do. Yeah, maybe you set a time each month to talk about it on a regular basis. Maybe you pick a time definitely right when the kids are already asleep or when they're at school. But I think those are great suggestions. And I think the idea is really to make sure that it's a comfortable environment before you have that discussion. Excellent. So, money conversation topics include things like how to determine your financial habits, what your attitudes are, what your money behaviors are, and also your goals. And these are all influenced by a number of factors. So we're going to be talking about these more as the session progresses. But right now, we're talking about money matters and how talking about money matters really do take time. So keep in mind that you can't solve all of the issues in one conversation. And this is an ongoing thing, right? This is a financial journey. So if you're feeling overwhelmed, one thing that you could do is set a timer and keep the conversation short. And then that way, you don't get overwhelmed talking about money and stress each other out. So maybe you set a timer for 10 or 15 minutes. And when that timer goes off, the conversation is over and you set a time to pick it up later or have a follow up conversation. Let's talk about dreams or goals for the future. So think about what dreams you have for your future. What do you want to accomplish in life? Where do you see yourself in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years down the road? Part of the money conversation is about communicating and establishing a shared vision together. So, when a couple is working towards the same goal, whether it's buying a big screen TV, remodeling the house, sending the kids to college, saving for retirement, or something else, they can stay on course and have fewer tense money moments. So, consider what direction is your love and money compass pointing you and your partner. And if you're not sure, you could try to compile a list of all the things you hope to be, see, and do. Really sit down and write out those goals. You'll get to know yourself and each other a little bit better, and then you can work together towards your destination. And if you don't like the direction you're headed, remember, you can always chart a new course together. There's nothing that says those goals have to stay. If you start to work towards them and you realize, I want to accomplish something different, or we wanted to head in a different direction than we originally thought, no problem. But the key is communicating those goals with each other. So, no matter how unromantic, having an open and honest discussion about your financial past and future is critical to your financial success. Keep in mind, everyone has their own money style, which has been shaped by their past experiences. Approaching money issues honestly and openly gives you a much better chance at having a strong, healthy financial relationship. So, I've got some more questions for you. And again, if you answer yes to this, go ahead and raise your hand. If you answer no, then don't do anything at all. But the first question is, do you know your partner's credit history? Next, do you understand how your partner views money? If your partner won $10,000, do you know how he or she would spend it? And if you won $10,000, do you know what your partner would expect of you? I see some hand raises and then I see some non-hand raises, right? So these are interesting questions to ask yourself. And this is really designed to help you think about what you really know about your partner and talk about the answers together. Another good way to start a money dialogue is to determine exactly how your partner feels about money. And this can be kind of an I'll tell you my story if you'll tell me yours situation. But by discussing past experiences, it can give both of you insight into your money views as well as your partner's money views. And money messages, keep in mind, are formed through family, outside sources, and personal experiences. These values and beliefs and attitudes towards money are shaped as we move through our life. So here are some common questions you might be able to use to open up a discussion in a non-threatening way and clear that path for other talks in the future. And remember, you do not have to find all the answers at once. If this starts to get overwhelming, set that timer. So you might want to consider talking with your partner about how did your parents or family treat each other regarding money? Um, this could this past history could be the cause of someone wanting to take control of the money from the other person. Next, how did your parents treat you regarding money? For example, if they were over permissive, you now may have no idea of the value of money, or you might have a hard time establishing boundaries. Next, as a child, did you think that you were rich or poor or middle class? And how does that affect you now? So, for example, if you were poor, maybe it could cause overspending now, or maybe just the opposite. You're afraid to spend money on yourself. Next, what kind of money traumas have you experienced and what did you learn? So maybe you got into trouble with credit cards and you worked through it and you learned that very valuable lesson and you won't do it again. Next, what are your money successes and what did you learn? This is a great question. So, one example could be that you were able to save for college and pay your way through school without incurring student loan debt. What you might have learned was that it was hard at the time, but it felt great not to have that debt to pay off in the future. And then finally, what have you learned from the media about money? We're inundated every day with messages on television, radio, social media about finances and money. One example of this might be that money comes easy and that you should spend and use credit freely. It's just part of our regular society. So these are some great questions to consider as you open up that dialogue. So I'd like to do a little exercise today, and this is a financial values inventory, and this is interesting. Now, I've got a copy of this in the handouts, but what I'm going to do now, grab a pen because we're going to kind of write down our answers and learn a little bit more about how we view money. So I'm going to pause our presentation for just a moment, and I'm going to pull this financial values inventory up on the screen so that you can see it and follow along. But what I'd like you to do is go ahead and write down your response for each statement. Now, one would be strongly disagree, two disagree, three neutral, four agree, and five strongly agree. So on a scale of 1 to 5. And then what we'll do is we will add these up, but it's going to determine whether we're in A, B, C, or D. And in a minute, we'll take a look at what those letters mean. So I hope everyone's got a pen and a piece of paper. Let's go ahead and get started. So the first question is, it's a good feeling to have cash in my pocket. 1 if you strongly disagree, 5 if you strongly agree, and then in the middle. 2, nothing is too good for my children. 3, there are a lot of things more important than money. 4, just wait, and money problems will either go away or take care of themselves. 5, money does not buy happiness. 6, buying at the best stores makes me feel good. Next, keeping track of every dollar drives me crazy. Next, I look around until I find the best price. Number 9, money and prestige, they go hand in hand. Next statement, it's nice to make gifts, even if I can afford to buy them. I can get along without saving. Paying cash is the best way. If I need money, it'll come from somewhere. I do not buy anything unless there's enough money to pay for it. 15, I must spend a little more than I can afford to get ahead in life. 16, it seems silly to worry about what the neighbors think about my belongings. 17, when something I need and often use is on sale, it's good to stock up. 18, there's no need to budget, either I have it or I don't. 19, I spend my money on what I care about most. And finally, 20, none of that cheap stuff is worth much. So at this point, you should have a number in each line on the column to the right. And what I'd like you to do is look at and add up the numbers in question 1, 8, 12, 14, and 17. And then write that down next to the letter A. Next, we're going to add up the numbers that we have in question 2, 6, 9, 15, and 20. And write that combined number next to the letter B. Third, we're going to add up the numbers that we have in question 3, 5, 10, 16, and 19, and write that total number next to the letter C. And lastly, we're going to add up our score on statements 4, 7, 11, 13, and 18, and then write that combined score next to the letter D. So what we should have here is A, B, C, D, and then 4 corresponding numbers. And you guessed it, the highest number indicates your money personality. So let's talk a little bit about that. Get our presentation back up here. All right. So those of you out there that are type A's, can I get a show of hand? Do I have any type A's out there? Okay. You are known as the frugal spender. You believe in using cash, not credit, keeping records of your spending, and following a budget. Great. Next, any type B's out there today? Okay, I see a couple type B's. Type B is known as the status shopper. You enjoy the process of spending money and buy to gain the approval and admiration of others. Type C. If you had the highest number next to letter C, you're known as the resourceful consumer. You subscribe to the use it up, wear it out, or make do or do without philosophy of spending money. You're willing to use your time and effort as well as some money to achieve your goals. Great. And then a show of hands if you were a type D. So you had the highest number next to the letter D. You were known as the carefree consumer. You have a carefree attitude about money. You trust that someone or some organization will be able to help you if you get into financial trouble or in a financial bind. So it's kind of a fun thing to do, but it does force you to sit down and really think about, gosh, maybe I am a resourceful consumer, or maybe I'm a status shopper. And once you know your money personality, you're set up for more success to be able to identify the issues that are in front of you and then take steps to overcome them. Or identify those things that you do around money that are really great and amplify those. And like I said, we've got a copy of this financial values inventory out there in the handout section of this webinar. So if you and your partner are not doing this together today, it would be a great exercise for you to do. And this might be a fantastic way to open up the dialogue about money as well. All right, so let's keep going. Your journey to financial security starts with knowing your values. We talked about this. And these are fundamental beliefs about what you regard as important, desirable, and worthwhile. Each of us is different in the way we value employment, family life, spiritual matters, personal health, education, public policy, credit use, and many other issues that confront us every day. And like I said earlier, a lot of times these values reflect your family background and they change very little over your lifetime. So, again, when we understand our own values and how they differ from the values of other family members and our spouse, we can make better decisions about how to best meet the needs of everybody in our family. So, back to communication. Communication is really a balancing act, as we see here. It should be a continuous process. So, there are many different things to consider when you're joining two lifestyles together because we're really doing just that two different people with different values and beliefs and lifestyles. So, here are some things to consider. Who's going to handle the money? Who's going to pay the bills? Which of you is going to manage the checkbook? Are you going to have separate checking accounts or maybe separate discretionary money? And then what are your future goals? Do you want to purchase a home? Do you want to maybe buy a new car together? Or do you have a maintenance fund for the home or cars you already have? Do you have children? Do you want to have children? And if you do, what about college? What are your plans for retirement? And what else do you want to achieve? So, regardless of who takes the lead on managing money in your relationship, it's important to keep the other person involved. So, this helps eliminate the blame game, but it also makes it easier transition if something happens to that person, death or illness. With both parties involved, there's also less room for misunderstandings and arguments. So each of these topics can bring you guys closer to determining whether you're on the same page concerning your future. And then you can better begin to plan your goals. Can you guys think of any other items that should be out there for discussion? Anything that we might be able to add to this list here about communicating our present and future? If you can, go ahead and include it in the chat box. Great. Another important thing is learning to listen. And as I read each statement, I'd like you to consider whether or not you'd answer yes or no. If you're comfortable, you can raise your hand for yes. But if you're not, that's okay. This might be just something that you consider privately. So here are the statements. During a disagreement, I find myself planning my defense. Sometimes when I'm listening, my mind wanders off the subject. If the subject is hard to understand, I stop listening. Sometimes I jump in on the conversation before the person is finished making their statement. Gives us some food for thought. Listening well is an important part of effective communication. So when you're in a conversation, it can be really hard for your partner to verbalize what he or she may be thinking. And if you're unclear about what they're saying, ask questions. Everybody makes mistakes, so try not to criticize, but start to think of solutions. And remember, nothing is ever accomplished through an argument. You may never agree on everything, and sometimes you really just have to agree to disagree. Sometimes it's a matter of compromise. Make a note of the challenges and try to work them out systematically. Negative feedback can cause somebody to shut down and get angry. So keep the lines of communication open. Always let your partner finish what he or she is saying without interruption. Where you think your partner is going might not be where they were headed after all. So if you've got any ideas of ineffective communication, go ahead and send them in the chat box now. There are so many out there, right? So yeah, ineffective communication could be things like warning, threatening, preaching, name calling, criticizing, right? Respect is really the key to good listening and good relationships. So when we're good listeners, we listen for the main message. We ask questions to clarify. We refrain from criticizing. We try not to argue, and we definitely let the other person finish what they were saying. So now that we've talked about the communication process, it's time to put it into action to help us solve those money problems. Solving money problems really does happen in steps. So first, acknowledge that there is a problem. Identify what the real problem is and discuss only the problem that you've identified. Then brainstorm alternatives and discuss each alternative that you brainstorm and then agree on a solution and make every effort to support that solution. And finally, keep communication open while you're working on that solution. So I'd like to give you a scenario to think about. If you'd like to type your responses into the comment or chat box, that would be great, but you don't have to. This is a scenario for you to think about and then perhaps to talk about with your partner later. Again, another way to kind of open up that money dialogue, if you will. So here's the situation. You're already $8,000 in debt, and you learn that your partner just bought a $3,000 item for himself or herself without talking about it with you first. Now you have a credit card payment of $330 every month, and it's really put a strain on your budget. And the item cannot be returned. Yikes, right? So, this is a scenario that we may have all found ourselves in at one point or another. And if you haven't, this is a common scenario around money. And so considering how you might handle these types of things before they come up can really help keep that communication open and keep you set up for ongoing financial success. All right. Couples come in all shapes and sizes, young and old, married or not. It's important that you assess your combined finances. So whether you're a new couple or you've been together for years and years, it's important. So let's talk a little bit more about how to assess your current financial situation right now. So first and foremost, it's important to pull and review all 3 credit reports for both of you at least once a year. This helps avoid any financial surprises. And both of you need to understand what effect the other person's credit will have on your combined finances. So if you haven't done so recently, I urge you to get a free copy of your annual credit report. And you can do that by visiting www.annualcreditreport.com, by calling 877-322-8228, or by mailing your request to the Annual Credit Report Request Service in Atlanta. If you'd like to view your official FICO score, you can also do that. It's for purchase at www.myfico.com. All right, so once you've both taken a moment to review your credit reports and share what's on there so that you get a better idea of how that could affect you together, then the next thing that we want to do is assess net worth. So net worth is really the difference between what you owe and what you own. And this is a great worksheet that we've got available in the section, the download section for this webinar. And really what you'll want to do is just list out all of your different assets, list out all of your liabilities, so what you own and what you owe, and calculate your net worth. And this is something that we should do at least once a year. Next, we start to consider the budget. And the first step in that is really assessing our income. So here we've got an income worksheet. And what you'll want to do is identify all the different sources of your income. And then
Identify the deductions so that what you come up with is your net income, the amount of money that you have each month to start to build your budget. Next, we start to talk about expenses. And it might be a great idea to identify expenses on a calendar. And this strategy can really help you make sure that that your bills are paid on time each month and that you don't miss any payments. Now, you can use the calendar method online, you can use a budgeting spreadsheet, you can use an actual calendar piece of paper, it doesn't matter. The idea here is to write down when each of your bills is due each month so that you don't miss those payments. Next, and we don't often like to think about the possibility of bad things happening, illness, death, or other foreseen events. But one of the keys to a solid financial future as a couple is planning for the unexpected. So these are a few key things to consider as we start to consider planning for the future. One, knowing where all the financial records are kept, what assets you own, and what you owe, that net worth, is critical in case illness, injury, or death happens suddenly. Gathering your net worth information is a great first step. Next, ensure that you're in control of your estate and how it's handled in difficult times. A little bit of planning up front can ensure a smooth transition and that there are no unexpected problems during a time that's already stressful. Estate planning is another key part of your financial plan for the future. So consider talking about insurance, pensions, 401k, and then those other retirement options. And speaking of planning, don't forget to think about medical decisions that might need to be made if one or both of you are incapacitated. And if you've got grown children, bring them into your planning discussions as well. Part of knowing where all your financial records are kept is also having an emergency grab and go box. So, a water and fireproof box that's portable, quick, easy, and cheap is a great way to make sure that you can easily locate and move those insurance, passport, medical, all those financial records along with extra money and other essentials in case an emergency strikes. So, the next thing we're going to talk about is setting goals and priorities. Written, measurable goals are more likely to be achieved than those you talk about in vague terms or those goals that you don't write down. Whether they're short term, mid range, or long term, goal achievement happens when we know what we want and identify time bound tasks to get us there. Now, we could talk about goals all day long, and that might be a different topic for a different day. We do have workshops and webinars specifically around the goal setting process. But for today, I want to stress the importance of delaying short term purchases for long term goals. So, for example, make an agreement with your partner or spouse to forego the gifts on the occasion you're celebrating. Maybe it's Christmas, maybe it's birthdays, and instead use that money toward achieving a shared goal, such as home ownership or paying off your debts or saving for a romantic vacation. Get on the same page about that. We talked about identifying income and expenses and net worth and all those good things, which leads us to creating a budget. Creating a budget or a spending plan is the next important step in positive financial communication for committed couples. So in the handout section of this webinar session, I also have a budget template, which is similar to the one that you'll see up here on the screen. When working on a budget, it's important to know where your money goes. So if you've never done this before, you might want to try by tracking your expenses and say maybe it's a period of 30 days. Anytime you spend money, even if it's $1 at a vending machine, record that, write it down, track it in your phone, whatever, and really see where your money goes. This can be an eye-opening exercise. If anybody's done this, go ahead and raise your hand. Yeah, it can teach you a lot. I learned just how much I spend on that takeout coffee. um, okay, it's also a good idea for each of you to make your own budget and then review them together so that you can figure out what the real costs are. You'll probably have some expenses that are duplicate and that you can either take out completely or reduce. The other thing is, now that you've set those new goals as a couple, saving for them should be included in your budget. So consider tracking those expenses on your own, setting a budget on your own, and then kind of bringing those together to identify those duplicate expenses and really achieve those shared goals. Financial matters are really no different than the other types of give and take in any committed relationship. The key to financial success is commitment, communication, and common goals. Now, we have covered quite a lot today. We learned to communicate concerning money matters and to listen to each other and discuss any money problems. We also talked about determining priorities and goals, creating a new budget, a combined budget together, and implementing a plan of action. And most importantly, I think we learned that love and money is really a long term project. So, if you've learned anything specific from this session today, I urge you to go ahead and type it in the chat box. Sometimes different people get different things out of the session. Yeah, we always get some great feedback about the financial values inventory and the money personality. I think it's one of those things that we never really sit down and think about, how do I view money? Unless we're prompted to do so. And so that's, yes, again, it's a fantastic exercise for you to take away and do together. Great. Well, I'd like to thank you again for your participation today, and remind you that if you're interested in additional content or information from us here at Money Management, you can visit www.moneymanagement.org. We also offer a live or pre-recorded webinar session on a different topic each month, so I urge you to join us for those as well. Thank you so much, and happy Valentine's Day.